From time to time, certain individuals set themselves far beyond everybody else in the space that they live or compete in. The gentleman that we're going to speak with today set 71 world records for powerlifting. At one point, he was 14% ahead of the next closest competitor. There's nothing like that in the annals of sports history. Let's get right into it with Mr. Edward Coan, world champion powerlifter. Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. Hey guys, this one has been in the making almost 2 years. A couple years ago, my friend Bryce Frank ran into this guy at a urinal, which is another story altogether. That's a Bryce Frank thing. We were down in south side of Chicago for a jiu-jitsu competition, and Bryce comes out of the bathroom and says, "You'll never guess who I just met in the bathroom." And I said, "Who, Bryce? You always are meeting dudes in the bathroom." And he said, "Fucking Edward Coan, man." I was like, "Oh, wow, that's amazing." So I went and hit this guy up on social media and asked him to do an interview. And for those of you that don't know who Edward Coan is, I believe 71 world records in powerlifting. Is that correct?
Something like that. I never really counted them because I didn't care.
Oh, okay. You just lost count.
But
so
a lot of contests, I would re-break my records multiple times.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot. So
there's dozens and dozens and dozens of world records. I heard another person describe some statistics, which I thought was quite fascinating. At the height of your career, you were 14% better than like the next closest competitor, which if we look at like baseball or hockey or football, most of these guys that are at the elite level are within small percentage points of each other. You watch the Olympic runners, they all finished within hundredths of a second of each other. You were like a lap ahead of everybody, which is pretty incredible. And I noticed one other thing. I did a little deep dive watching historical footage from the 80s and 90s of you lifting, and you didn't have the physique comparable, and you may correct me, but in my experience of watching and meeting and seeing guys that look like a lot of other power lifters. A lot of them are these huge hulking guys that look big and strong. You look like a ripped cover of Men's Health magazine for some of that stuff. I mean, for real though, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. You look more like a bodybuilder than the typical power lifter body, where guys would be walking around at 25% body fat and stuff like that. Comment on that.
Yeah, my program was designed around my weak points other than a regular squat, bench, and deadlift. So wherever I was weak at, whether it was an incline press, a shoulder press, a bent over row, or pull up, or some other kind of, a quad dominant squat, those are the things I did all off season to bring up my weak points, which definitely gives you a better physique. I think that the big thing about the physique part was the fact that at one time I was out lifting the super heavyweights, guys, 350 to 400 pounds. So right away, I look a little bit different.
And just to put that in perspective, I was looking at some stuff. You were like 220 pounds lifting like 1,000 pounds. Like you were 200-ish pounds bench pressing 560-ish pounds. Is that correct?
Yeah. My best bench was 584.
Okay.
I weighed a little over 230 at the time. I really only went up in body weight because I started to get too lean at 220, and handling such huge poundages, being too lean gets a little bit more dangerous. So I just went up a little bit in weight to the next weight class at the end, just to make sure I was squatting over 1,000 and benching around 6 and deadlifting, I did deadlift 901 pounds at 220, but I think it just gave me a little more cushion.
I looked up this morning, like the heaviest Harley Davidson motorcycle with fuel in it, and that's like 900-ish pounds. So you were basically picking up a full dresser Harley off the floor and erecting your back straight. That's crazy.
Yeah. The good days.
I'm sure you get this question often. So I grew up, my dad, who I'll send this podcast to, he was into weightlifting when I was a kid, of course, still is in his 70s. And he was always like talking about guys like Reg Park and, all like the big dudes from the 50s, 60s, 70s, Lou Ferrigno, Arnold, of course. Pumping Iron was like a book that was always like on a bookshelf around the house or laying on a coffee table. You hear about those dudes or you see them now and they're broke, man. Like these dudes are, withered up, or like Ronnie Coleman is, I think, a perfect example. How does a guy's body hold up? And how old are you now?
61.
So what's going on with your bod after lifting 1,000 pounds and bench pressing?
It wasn't really the lifting. It's what genetics I had. Like, my mom had osteorheumatoid arthritis. She had both knees replaced, a hip, a shoulder. Her hands were messed up. Her feet, her toes were messed up. So I after I got done, I had both hips replaced and nothing else since. And I can still squat and deadlift. It's like this, like Ronnie Coleman. It wasn't because he went so heavy. It's because, like me, everything was healthy up until a point. It's genetics. I got a lot of my mom's stuff. And with Ronnie, I think after he had his hip replaced, or both of them, it's very common to keep your back healthy, your lower back healthy, because a lot of bad things can happen because your whole gait, everything is off in your lower body now. And I think when he ended up hurting his back, he had a bad back surgery and had another bad back surgery. And then he was just screwed. And it's a shame to see.
Back and stuff.
Yeah, I think it was more from bad surgeries than it wasn't bad lifting. A lot of the other guys, it's like this. If you do anything in your life for a long period of time, trying to be the very, very best, there are repercussions down the line. Maybe you have carpal tunnel, or you have a bad knee or ankle, or your eyesight is bad because you study too much, or, it's something. I just say, as long as you do epic shit before it's over with, it ends up being worth it.
When we joined each other this morning on this recording, I said, "How are you?" And you said something to the effect of, "I'm always awesome."
I make a choice every morning. I'm good. I can still jump out of bed without a problem, without any pain. Of course, there's limitations after a certain time. I just don't really want to try to lift heavy anymore. So I don't, but I still do all the same stuff I used to with lighter weight, or I look for ways to make it more difficult so I don't have to try to go heavy to get a good stimulus out of it. And as long as I can do it with very little or no pain and have full range of motion, I'm good.
What does not lift heavy mean? Like are you you're still deadlifting and squatting?
Yeah.
And what's that look like?
I just don't try to go, I'm not going to be the guy that is older that says I have to prove myself and show everyone I can still squat 600 plus pounds and do this. It's not about that anymore. It's about me and my life and having fun and enjoying it. And just the basic part of lifting that I used to like when I was a kid, why I got into it. And that's what I try to recreate all the time is I have fun and put in some good effort, and I look pretty good for it, and I'm okay with it.
How often are you working out?
4 days a week.
So you got a home gym, or do you go to a gym?
I go to two different gyms. One gym, Lance's down in Bridgeport in the city. I go to do some squat and bench stuff and some deadlift and back stuff on 2 different days. And another little gym near my house. It's a regular commercial gym. I use a lot of machines that I wouldn't be able to do some of those exercises comfortably with free weight. And I just, work the crap out of those.
Can you go in the gym and like just get a workout done without people bothering you?
Yeah, at a certain time. If I go there at night, then I'll see a lot of people that might recognize me, which is weird to me. I mean, being a power lifter, but I've been around a long time. But all you do is, as long as no one bothers you in your set, you just say hi. That's it.
Sure. I guess my point was more like stopping you from working out, asking questions.
I wouldn't allow it. I wouldn't allow it anyways.
Got it. I want to go back a little bit to the mindset thing. It's easy for people to say things like, I talk about this in our classes with students. We get into these communication patterns like a waitress brings you food and says, enjoy your meal. And oftentimes people will just say, you too. And then they chuckle because you're not eating, you brought me food.
Yeah.
Or the flight attendant says, enjoy your flight, and hands you your ticket at the counter, and you say, you too. And you realize she's not.
Conditioned response.
Yeah, exactly. And so people, hey man, what's up? What's up with you? And then that's the conversation. Are you actually good? Are you going through any self-talk or programming of your brain? Are you fighting through any pains or ailments that you're like, I'm not going to succumb to this? Or do you just flippantly say I'm good?
I usually just say I'm actually pretty good.
I dig it. Did you have any type of mental game, any type of mental programming, visualization that you would go through back in the day?
I could always visualize stuff, not just the way it looked, but I could visualize things how they felt, because I can't see how they look unless I'd look at a video or I watch myself in a mirror, which you don't want to do. So my visualization technique was more by feel. If it felt really good and weight went up well, then it was good, period. I didn't have to look. I didn't have to worry about it. And I think by picking the right numbers every training cycle that are all realistic, and when you get into a pattern that you never miss lifts and you always feel good, you develop a lot more positive mental attitude than most people would have. Because there's nothing positive about missing lifts unless you made a little mistake and you learned from it, which a lot of people don't do. But I did a lot of the same stuff all the time, repetitively, did the same exercises, the same reps, and I got a lot of benefit because I listened to my body and how did I feel? I was very, very honest with myself. And that's the thing that makes you progress.
That makes good sense. You started this stuff pretty young, it looks like. I saw some videos of you high school age. What got you into the sport of powerlifting?
I started wrestling my first year in high school. I was 4'11", 98 pounds. And like when you mentioned pumping iron, I watched pumping iron. I was like, holy crap, I want to be like that. So then I tried to be Arnold, and I went in my first bodybuilding contest when I was around 15 or 16. And I didn't really get fulfilled by it, even though I didn't do shit anyways. I didn't really feel the burning desire to do it again. And then I met Franco Colombo when he came out with his book.
I was going to say, you should be emulating Franco.
Yeah, I met him at a sporting goods store at 95th and Cicero here in Oak Lawn, Sport Mart. And he was promoting his
remember Sport Mart. Yeah, I miss the Sport Mart.
And he was a shorter dude like myself. And I watched him just, cold walk up and deadlift 300 something pounds on an Olympic set for some reps during his talk. And I was in awe. So I tried to be Franco. And that's what led me into the strength part.
Yeah, he was strong as crap. I remember in pumping iron, there's a short video clip of him moving that parallel park car. You remember that?
Yeah. I think he was home in Sardinia at the time. It was a little subcontact car that someone was parked too close to the back bumper. So he moved it for the guy so he could pull out.
Yeah, it just goes and freaking deadlifts the car and drags it out into the street. He was a little
powerful guy. He was very athletic. I talked to him like a year before he passed away at the Arnold Classic. Every year, Dr. Bob Goldman would have the International Sports Hall of Fame. And I sat next to Franco in the front row there, and we talked. And what he liked back then is a lot of the guys were a lot more athletic than the guys were now. He doesn't like the fact that they're just, too one-dimensional and can't do anything else.
Interesting. I do a lot of balance exercises, like on a slack line. I don't know if you're familiar with what a slack line is, and it's basically like a tightrope, but it's a nylon strap. My brother got me into it years ago through rock climbing, and I've shared some videos on social media of it. And years ago, I had some guy that was a power lifter that just hated me. And so he would, and I do jujitsu. That's how I was competing at that event that Bryce ran into you in the bathroom. He was probably stalking you into the bathroom, actually.
Yeah.
But this guy had a hard on for me where he would send me messages and comment on videos like, "You're a pussy. I could freaking literally just tear you in half. Jiu-jitsu and all this stuff will do nothing." And I would laugh like, yes, I'm sure you're very strong. Like which is, I don't know. Nobody ever said they wish they were weaker. Nobody ever said they wish they were slower. So I appreciate that, but I felt in his arguments, this guy was clearly off his freaking rocker, but super one-dimensional, were to him just raw strength meant everything. My friend Paul Sharp, I don't know if you've ever met Paul, but Paul, I know Bryce, who we started the conversation with through Paul. Paul was a SWAT cop in Elgin, Illinois, jiu-jitsu black belt, MMA fighter, a stud. And in his 40s, he did the 600-pound deadlift, the 600-pound squat, and the 6-minute mile. As like a 220-pound dude. And people hear that, and it's like, all right, the lifting part, lots of people do that. But like, damn, the dude ran a 6-minute mile, like being capable of that kind of horsepower. And those numbers for guys at your level, the lifts are nothing crazy. But
what I always go by is, what can you do? If that's good for you, that's all that matters. I don't compare anybody to myself at all, ever.
As long as you were better than them, because otherwise you wouldn't have been competing.
Well, that was kind of a given. But well, one of my friends, when I met Bryce, one of my friends was competing in that tournament, and his professors were, his main one was Professor Marcos Barros. And Marcos is a 5th degree, and I watched him do some things at seminars where I just look and go, oh my God, I would be so dead. But I can outlift him in the gym.
Sure.
Big deal. I don't even know how to change the oil on my car. I don't know how to do plumbing. I don't know how to do a lot of things that other people are better than me at. I'm just a lifter who enjoyed really, really doing what I did to be the best I possibly could till I couldn't anymore.
That's an interesting thing to accept that, or I feel like a lot of us, we don't want to be like less than in a certain area. Like you don't want to, I don't know shit about sports, football, baseball. I mean, I can talk a little bit about the stuff, but I was into fishing and hunting and shooting guns. That's what I do. And like guys will start talking about like the NFL draft or something, and it's, right over my head. And I don't feel any like negative feelings about that. But to get really good at something, like you said, I don't know how you can have a lot of excellence in other areas.
You can't.
It just doesn't make sense. I have a friend, his name's Les Keys Martoni, national level pistol shooter. And I don't know about powerlifting, but in the firearms world, there's no money there. Maybe you get like, you win some trophies, you win some stuff.
It's little stuff.
You spend thousands of dollars as a competitive shooter to travel and buy the stuff you need. He called it chasing the dragon, like this, impossible thing that's fantasy in your head. Not comparing it to powerlifting.
I just thought I was doing it because I loved it. That's all I cared about.
And that was his point. Like, I'm doing all this just because I want to see how fast I can go. How fast can I go? How much quicker can I go?
Mm-hmm.
So you got your hips replaced. I know dudes that have hips replaced that worked in offices their whole lives. So that seems pretty good. You're not withered up. You're not all
the first one I had done where my wife's from in Norway. because they were ahead of what we did here. And the second one I got back done here when they, kind of caught up to what some of the rest of the Europeans were doing as far as surgery wise. But a lot of the old studies that I read up on, my cousin is my surgeon here.
Oh, cool.
A lot of the studies were too old. They were a little archaic. They were done on people that had like either debilitated injuries or were old and had no bone density or muscle tendon or ligament strength or something like that. So a lot of these studies that were done don't apply to athletes and people who have everything they didn't. So once it was fixed, when I got it fixed in Norway, the first one, he said, you could go squat and deadlift all you want. Don't run and jump. I was like, no lifestyle change there.
That's funny. So all these years later, still working great?
Yeah, no problem.
Which one's better?
The second one I had done, they went from having a little bit more on the side incision where it cut through a little more tissue, little, muscle and stuff, to an anterior approach, which is more in front where it only cuts through fascia tissue. And that one is definitely better, but it doesn't stop the other one from working fine.
I like it. So what's a guy do to earn a living lifting weights?
You train.
So that's the end state. You're a trainer.
Yep. And we didn't have social media, so it was all in-person stuff. Nowadays, you could do it all online.
Yeah, it seems daunting. There's a guy, Dr. Mike Israetel. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I know Dr. Mike. I knew him before he got popular. Chad Wesley Smith from Juggernaut, and Chad was a great powerlifter himself, and now he's been doing jiu-jitsu and winning.
Mm-hmm.
He brought Dr. Mike with him to a big meet that we were all at in Australia once, where all the Russians were, to do interviews because Dr. Mike is a Russian Jew, and he speaks fluent Russian. So he did all the interviews and translating during all the little podcasts and interviews they did over there.
Very cool. That's a neat piece of info. I was just
Yeah,
thinking
Mike's
about
a good guy.
They created this huge YouTube channel. They've got this app that it's not exactly cheap compared to a lot of stuff available. I'm not saying cost is commensurate with value, but there's so much of that. So how do you work now? I know you've got another business, or you did in Michigan, which we can talk about.
Yeah, I got a weed business in Michigan. I have a processing lab with some partners in Michigan, and I have some real estate investments with a friend of mine.
So you're a freaking drug dealer.
Legal.
What Michigan processing? What does that mean? Like turning it into other things?
Yeah. So we would take the flower itself and basically break it down with a few processes to turn it into, cartridges for vapes, the liquid for the vape carts, concentrates of hash, and gummies. And we will market our products to the stores so they have products to sell.
How the heck did you get into that?
Just somebody came up to me at the gym and started asking me some questions about it that wanted to get into the business. A younger guy who I had been helping for a while. And I had some pretty good connections, and we kind of got set up.
That's fantastic. I personally don't consume the stuff, but
I've never smoked pot in my life.
No, I've definitely smoked pot, but it's not my thing. It's an interesting dichotomy. I was just talking about this the other day on a social media post. The regulations on pot, and I don't care about it. And not the regulations, but I'm not a consumer of it. But the amount of bullshit that the American government, through a couple agencies, there's a lot of like nefarious conspiracies around it, with some big tycoons from the oil and paper and publishing industry, chemical industry back in the 30s, pushing the legislation to make it illegal.
That'll never stop.
You don't think
big
so?
Money talks. Look at Big Pharma now.
Yeah. So you guys don't grow, you just purchase it?
We're the middleman. We'll get our product from a grower, and we break it down, and sell everything to the stores.
I see. So break it down,
So
package it.
we kind of produce it in mass quantities and sell cheap and make your money over mass quantities.
I got you. You don't consume any of it, is what you said.
No, once in a while I'll have a gummy for sleep. There's gummies that have a little bit of, besides THC, a little bit of CBN in them, which makes you relax and go to sleep.
So that helps?
Yeah, because then I'll wake up with, or I won't wake up at all and get a lot better sleep.
I think I heard you in another interview, which is how I found out about the lab business, talking about sleep and recovery. Talk about that a little bit.
I used to sleep as much as possible.
Always?
I'm a big fan of naps, yes.
So even in your 20s, 30s, 40s?
Yep, always. Found a way to take a nap every day. You know, I would train in the morning, do a little bit of work, then I would go home and eat again, and then I would take a nap, and then I would get up and do some more work.
It's interesting. You hear different people. Everybody's a doctor now, or everybody's a specialist in these things. And you hear guys say, "Don't do that." Stay up all day, and they're talking about the different hormones and stuff going on in your brain, and go expose your balls to the sunlight every morning. There's all these.
But yet, there's people living incredibly long, healthy lives that don't do that. Now, it's possible that some of that stuff can help a little bit, but is it going to help you? How are your genetics set up? How are you wired? If you feel really good and everything is going great, why would you just change it? Because somebody who doesn't do any of the stuff you did to be that good or whatever, or trying to be that good, tells you because they read some book on some obscure study from some other country or something like that. If everything's good, I don't change it.
There's a lot of like educated people now that have huge social media followings, and there's a handful of them, maybe like 12, that are like the superstars in that space. And man, like ice baths, we've got one at our gym. People now, like, if you don't take an ice bath, you're not going to live a long time. Or saunas. I've been building saunas for years.
Well, I think everyone got a hold of what Wim Hof did.
Yeah.
And they just started, where there's not as much science behind it. I mean, it definitely can mess with your recovery, because there's certain inflammation process that goes on after you train for a certain amount of, I don't know, hours or days that you need, that your body has to go through. And an ice bath could prevent that. I mean, it also all depends on what degree you're training, as far as if you're getting ready for things, if you're competitive, that could affect it a lot. But on the other hand, a lot of times it teaches you how to have a little more testicular perseverance, or teaches you how to breathe underneath those ice cold temperatures, or toughen you up that you might need.
Sure.
And if it gives you a benefit, and if you really like it, I don't change for anybody. I mean, look at the studies with nutrition and other things that have come about in recent years that dispelled all the old beliefs.
You're talking about bacon and eggs and cholesterol and meat and
butter and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I think
which is funny because I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
No, that's okay. My diet when I was younger was, I mean, if I was on point with my body weight for whatever contest, I would cheat and eat whatever the hell I wanted, but I would always make sure I got enough protein, and that was the key. So, like, every night before I went to bed, I had a steak. Wake up in the morning, I felt fantastic. A lot of other people don't get the same feeling. Pardon?
I said the butcher loved you too.
Yeah. Did you just go by what works for you? A lot of times, I probably did studies on myself without even realizing it to find out what was successful.
when you grew up, kid, how many of the eating patterns that your parents instilled in you did you continue with? Like, I mean, you go to the grocery store. I don't know your background, but you go to the grocery store and you see people with a cartload of like fruity pebbles and just garbage food like that. I would never feed my child. Like, did you grow up eating those kinds of things?
Well, yeah, of course, because nobody knew. They believed the government then.
Sure.
Yeah, they believed that these companies had your best interests at heart, which they didn't. But your body's, when you're young, you can get away with a lot because it's very strong and resilient. But there comes a point where you don't get away with it anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Thankfully, my parents did not feed us that stuff. And as a kid, you'd be pissed off because your buddies would have it.
Yeah.
Or, you go to school, my mom would give you a sandwich with lettuce and tomato and maybe cheese and maybe meat on it. It wasn't that they were against meat, but that you'd have an apple, and then my friends would have just a bunch of garbage packaged food. And I was like, I want to eat that. That looks.
Well, yeah,
cool.
shit food tastes great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was going to say, I don't feel that way now. I don't crave going to McDonald's or Southside and White Castle.
You know what? A while back, I had to do a seminar somewhere in Michigan, and instead of driving a long distance in the morning, I went to the lab at night, and I have a room there with a futon, so I slept there, and I was like, oh, what's open at this time? And I went to McDonald's and got a couple things, and I almost got sick eating it. It was it was so horrible.
I travel for work. I had driven over 50,000 miles this year. That's not an exaggeration. I think I've actually driven about 53,000 miles. So I've got a spreadsheet. My nephew and I have started it of coffee shops, places that make good breakfast sandwiches, who's got the best steak, who's got a nice frickin' margarita, who's got good tacos, and like all over the country, from New Mexico to California to Oregon, and I'll in our notes who's open late, and so I'll look on my map. Cool. All right, how freaking close am I? And I will plan it, because I did that same thing a couple years ago. It was like 2:00 in the morning in BFE in like Kentucky or Tennessee, and I think all that was open was a Wendy's maybe. And I know some people listening are going to get annoyed because they have no problem with the food, but I'm not used to it. I felt like shit. I went to sleep with a stomach ache, and I woke up like I had a hangover, and like my body just doesn't like it.
Yeah, your body tells you what's good and bad.
How about alcohol? Do you or did you
I've
ever
never
consume alcohol?
I've never been a drinker.
So you're pretty clean eater all these years, and not into smoking weed. So that's interesting. So now, as an adult, are you super clean with your diet? Like, are you buying?
No, I'm not super clean. I'm good enough. I'm more of a vertical diet guy. Stan Efferding and I have done a bunch of seminars and traveled all over the world, so I learned a lot from Stan. And then I watch Lane Norton, who's a friend of mine, and Dr. Mike.
Mm-hmm.
And you start learning a little bit more on. I don't go by what's trending. I could care less about that. I go by like listening to them and getting little tidbits that I could change that I think are doable. It's the things that are doable that last in the long run. If you try a diet that's too restrictive for you, or that doesn't fit what you want, if your brain tells you, no, I don't like this, and then you quit, and then that's why all these diet companies make billions of dollars.
And some of them are really hard, just with the amount of cost of food. Like, I only eat filet mignon, medium rare, 4 times a day. Like,
to be sustainable in your diet or workout plan, it has to be doable.
Sure. I'm pretty simple: meat, eggs, some vegetables. I just had a nice peach this morning. I don't need a lot of processed stuff, but it's an interesting thing talking about fads. We're so quick. I just was talking to, I don't know if you know who Pete Koch is. He was an actor. He
Pete Koch played
you
for
know,
the Raiders
yeah.
in California. I met Pete quite a few times. Actually, we do know each other. He used to
Okay.
get a lot of help from Dr. Fred Hatfield back in the day too.
So he's a friend of mine, and we were just talking about the fads in fitness and the fads in diet, and how quick people just are trying to find with human nature. My buddy Z says, "People gonna people." Like we just want to find that least resistant path, but it's like I think he's 62, still a beast. Still.
Yeah, he looks good. He does some inspirational videos about actually being in shape and healthy,
Yeah,
and not just trying to be a monster.
yeah, and he still is, especially
Yeah,
compared to normal human beings. But um, it's it's so hard for people to just grasp, like, go work out on a regular basis and eat good food. Like, now there's got to be some trick. There's got to be some hack. There's
yeah,
got to be some
yeah.
secret.
Well, everyone wants a reason, an easy reason why someone else is better than them.
Hmm. Hmm. That's a good way of looking at it. That's a great way of looking at it. It's not how can I be better or what can I do more. It's why are they getting a better result? What are they
Yeah,
doing?
I don't put other people in my equation. It's all, it's 100% selfish, all about me. What do I need to do for me that I know is sustainable, that I can do for a long time, that makes me feel good or look good? I haven't checked my weight, and I can't tell you how many years. I can look in the mirror and I can go on my performance and see how I feel. If I like what I see, and if I like how I feel in the gym, I'm okay. I don't got a problem.
I dig that. And that's what's your goal, right? If your goal is I want to weigh 205 pounds all the time and see my abs, uh, that's a goal that somebody could have. Yours is how do I feel?
Yeah, it's all how you feel. How you look has nothing to do with shit. A lot of ripped guys die.
It's interesting, that's so true. One of the things I wanted to bring up and chat with you about, the reason I was on the phone with Pete in the last 6 months, maybe in the last year, 6, 8 guys I know, all combat athletes, doing jujitsu and fighting art stuff, are blowing bicep tendons, Achilles, and a lot of them blew them doing really silly things. Silly, like slipped and caught himself on a collar and blew the bicep tendon. I was at a training event in Arizona last September, and were the instructors explaining some stuff. Most of these guys are high level belts and really well versed, meaning they know how to train. They weren't outputting too much. And this guy is mounted. We're practicing holding somebody in mount, and he's cradling the guy's head. And the dude underneath is twisting around. All of a sudden, we all heard it in a room of like 60 people. That bicep tendon just snapped. And there was an orthopedic surgeon there. He's like, "Damn, your bicep tendon's completely disconnected." So, like, talking to Pete, I'm like, "Man, what the hell? All these guys are blowing stuff. Like, one, how do I not do that? Right? Oftentimes it seems that as we age, dudes are like, well, I just can't do that anymore. I can't sprint. I can, but I had to run across a firing range the other day because the wind was going to blow my tent away. And so I sprinted back to the tent and caught it. And a couple of the guys were like, "Did you blow your hamstring?" And I laughed. I'm like, "Why would I blow my hamstring?" And they were like, "Well, if I did that, I'd blow my hamstring."
But they don't train like you.
So comment on that a little bit. How do we, how can we, as we're aging, help? The funny thing, and I'll say one more point about it, and then I'll let you go. Like everything you read is keep training, warm up. Well, all these dudes are training and they're warming up, and then they're still blowing shit.
Well, you can obviously blow something like I had a buddy who had great, big, beautiful biceps in the garage in a he had a small little kiddie bike hanging up, and it fell off, and he grabbed it with one arm. Bicep went. Sometimes a freak accident is just that. It's a freak accident. But to prepare yourself, I think Chris Duffin calls it, Kabuki calls it anti-fragile. You have to decide how you want your body to operate. And then you have to design a program to make it do that. I designed my program so I would have no weaknesses. And I succeeded, and it made me last a long time because I didn't have weaknesses. I had everything strong, what kept me in check or in place or without getting hurt for a lot longer period of time than a lot. And I was able to excel the whole way. I went from 165 all the way up to 240 pounds, still with no body fat, because that's how I trained. Now, if I wanted to be a little more resilient in what I did with, if I was more athletic, I would throw in sprints and some more stretching and some more stuff. There's a guy, Judd Leonard, who has an Instagram page who does really, really cool different forms of exercises in different planes. And he's a beast of an athlete. I would recommend people check his stuff out. It's really, really cool. And
what's his name?
Judd Leonard, like JUDDLIENDARD, maybe.
I'll look him up.
Yeah.
How does a guy go about figuring out where these weaknesses are? You know, average dudes, that bicep thing. A friend of mine, Green Beret, MMA fighter, jiu-jitsu black belt, just blew his bicep, helping some kids doing some tumbling stuff. And one of the kids fell, similar thing, you know, catastrophic, like explosive movement against his
sometimes if to be resilient, you have to have a certain amount of strength, a certain amount of rigidity, and a certain amount of flexibility. Like a giant bridge or building that's built during a windstorm, one of those hurricanes or something, you can see as strong as they are, as rigid as they are, they're still built with the ability to still move in there, which keeps them in place. So that's a really fine line. A freak thing, like I said, is a freak thing is just that. It's a freak thing.
I don't want any freak things, man. I don't want any freak things.
Yeah, I used to do a bunch of JKD stuff, and it morphed into a lot more street fight type stuff. And when we would do some like a mass attack, I knew when I moved around, I had to be really careful because I could pop a calf.
Just because of how powerful your muscles were.
Yeah, and how explosive I had to be because I didn't train that way all the time. You can't train. You can train a certain way to help you with normal life stuff, but freak stuff is just that. It just sucks. But, you know, in your question to find out where your weaknesses are, I know that if I want to get my bench press up and I see if it stops, if it's slower in the front, middle, or top, that I have to get my chest, shoulders, or triceps stronger, or upper chest. You see that. I know that if I lack stability on the bench, that a lot of times it comes from your upper back. It's not strong enough to be able to hold and lock in place. So that part is easy. If I want to run faster, I got to practice running. And then I got to learn also how to run, because it takes a long time for tissue adaptation to occur. A friend of mine, Josh Bryant, when Josh started doing some of his sprinting work, he didn't sprint for a year. He did really, really slow, small little spurts and worked his way up to a full sprint because the tissue adaptation, it would have popped.
That's interesting. And that, I think, brings up an excellent point. Maybe too far, too fast, too much, too soon.
Yeah.
We're not willing. We as people, I don't want to go to the gym every day and do a little bit. My buddy Z likes to say, do a little, a lot, which.
Look, I never set out to lift the weights and to be as good as I was in the whole scheme of things. I just tried to get better, and I got better a whole bunch of times, just a little bit better. And if you do that for a long time, you end up pretty damn good from where you were.
I'm writing that down. You just tried to get better. And that's, I guess, kind of depicts this idea of outcome focus versus process focus.
Yes. Well, the process is important to the right process secures the right outcome. It's when people try to be too good and make too much progress too fast that they fail. You know, if I take really big steps over a course of a mile, I might get there sooner, but the space in between each step is lost chance to grow and to learn your own body because you tried to do it too fast. But if I do it slow a whole bunch of times and learn, gradually I get better and better, and then you can start increasing as far as the distance between each step. I just did it a little bit. I have a realistic amount of progress I can make on all these different exercises over a training cycle. So it wasn't my squat, bench, and deadlift were just programmed. My close grips, my inclines, my dips, my shoulder presses, my pause squats, my high bar close stand squats, my bent over rows, my stiff leg deficit deadlifts, all these things were programmed in with the sets, reps, and weights before I even started the program. And everything was done in a realistic manner to ensure that I didn't miss lifts in any of them. So I got strong in all these areas every single time I built a new base on a training routine. So over the course of 5 years, which, because you're not a kid anymore either, how fast does 5 years go?
Yeah.
Bam,
Yeah.
it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
look what happens if you concentrated on getting all these things stronger a training cycle after training cycle. Let's say you do 5 training cycles a year, 4 or 5 training cycles a year. You made a little bit progress on all of those exercises, got better. What are you going to look like in 5 years?
Yeah. Talk about training cycles. I'm assuming a thing, but what's that look like to you?
I liked my off-season training cycles because I would do a lot longer training cycle with a lot smaller jumps because I wasn't worried about peaking. And I knew if certain exercises got stronger, like a different version of a squat, bench, or deadlift, that when I started the new training cycle, getting ready for a contest, that I knew the results were going to be really good.
How did you go about piecing together a training cycle? And kind of what I'm looking for, a guy shooting a pistol, a guy practicing jujitsu or some other martial art. How can we plug in Champion's ideology, methodology into that?
Well, most of it was, like I said, based on feel, but I was super, super honest with myself. And I would break down where I thought I was strong or weak on. And I didn't always run to my strengths. I ran to my weaknesses in the off season because I knew then I would be better.
Were you the kind of guy that'd be at the gym with a Walkman on and a notebook, don't mess with me, or were you in there having fun? Did you have training partners? Did you have coach?
I had training partners and I would mess around a little bit in between sets, but when it came time for my set coming up, it would be like laser focus. I'd have blinders on like a horse.
You could just turn that on and off.
Can turn it on and off in a heartbeat.
So I've noticed that commonality. I talk about this with students all the time, especially if people are getting too loose when we're in the training environment, like special operations dudes, pro athletes, Division I, athlete kind of guys. They can go from grab assing and horsing around to, the whistle blows or the coach says, let's go or whatever. And it's, let's get this done. Years ago, I trained with a group of Navy SEAL and Green Berets on this project that I was asked to kind of help and consult on. And I loved it because I'm a big joker and grab asser, but like the guy running the show, these guys would be having a ball. And then in a freaking split second, everybody was tuned in. Let's get it done. And then we go have fun and have dinner and, you know, let it blow off steam after a day of the work. But you go to gyms or the range, jiu-jitsu gyms, guys are talking while the coach is talking. Guys are freaking walking around taking pictures on their phone. You know, like, you're not here to train. That's not what you're doing. You're here.
No, your focus is not to get better. You're there for social hour. You will not be as good as you could be.
Did you have a coach?
No.
Or you?
No. I had Powerlifting USA magazine.
At what point did you realize I'm really freaking good at this and like I'm going to be somebody?
I realized I had a chance to win contests. It never really crept into my head because I knew I could get better. My drive was to get better. I didn't give a shit what anyone else did. It was about my own self-fulfillment to get better. I really didn't care. Didn't even think about it.
Did you grow up lifting? I saw as a child, we started talking about that. You were a fit kid in high school. You wrestled. Was your dad into this stuff at all?
Nope, mom and dad were not. But I did all the regular baseball, football, basketball when I was a little kid growing up in a parochial school.
Catholic school?
Yep, St. Bernadette's.
I guess where I'm going with that is I'm trying to figure out, I know you talked a little bit about seeing the pumping iron and that really flipping the switch. Did you have guys around you? Was there a coach? Was there somebody else? Or was it like you said, grabbing magazines and
anybody I had around me that we worked out with, I could count on them to tell me if something was wrong. That's how well I taught them. So they knew me pretty well. And everything else, all the routine, everything else was always me.
I dig it. Do you still do consulting, coaching, training work?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be coming out with a website pretty soon with a friend of mine to do a bunch of that. You have a bunch of really cool programs and videos and turn that a little bit more into a business. But for right now, usually like on Instagram, I have people just send me video clips of their lifting, and I can diagnose it like that and tell them what's wrong and how to fix it. And I do that for free.
Well, stop doing it for free.
Yeah.
I think what you meant to say.
I'll still always do it for free because I actually really enjoy.
I'm just kidding.
Someone, but the other, too in depth, then you're going to have to pay me for it because I don't need to take up too much of my time.
Sure. So you're going to create a website, maybe some videos and things like that.
A lot of videos and a lot of good, cool routines that I know work.
That's fantastic. I like that. Planning on launching it anytime soon, or is it something that you
not
guys
really? It's in the works to do, but we haven't started it yet.
Very cool. Well, that's kind of in my wheelhouse. If I can help you at all, please reach out and let me know on that stuff. Dude, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. I know that you get requests to do this stuff all the time, so I appreciate it. I made a page of notes here talking with you. I've got, and not just on the weightlifting stuff, but I think one of the most important things that I just noted here, which I've heard this in parallel discussions, run to your weaknesses. We often find that we do the thing that we're good at or that comes easy to us. And then why would I get better at anything else if that's all I do?
I knew how to squat, bench, and deadlift correctly. Why would I keep hammering the shit out of that if something else at the same time is getting weaker? So I would bench with my feet up in the air in the off season to create a lot more instability that would strengthen a lot of shit that didn't get strong.
I dig it.
Something as simple as that.
Did other guys see you and try to emulate, or are they like, this dude's nuts?
Well, my training partners would emulate me because I was the one making up the routines.
Okay.
But we all have different strengths and weaknesses. So you just, if I watch someone lift, like during a squat or deadlift, and I'll watch it from a few different angles. If it looks really good and it goes up smooth, I won't touch it. Because there is no textbook perfect technique. Like myself and you are built way different. Your technique in the squat, bench, and deadlift, at least for right now, is going to be different than mine. So why would I try to make you into me? I can't.
Sure.
I want to make you into a better version of you that feels good for not just your body, but for your brain, because it all starts there. If your brain accepts it and says, oh, wow, I really like the way this feels, you're never going to have a bad workout because you're going to go there knowing that it's going to feel good.
I like that. We use this idea with students, especially when guys are watching somebody great at something. And I say principles over techniques. Like, don't look at the principles that they're working on or that they're exhibiting, not the specific technique. Especially like shooting a pistol, I've got really strong grip compared to guys that are 200 pounds. I spent my life doing manual labor. So for me to hold a gun a certain way, I'm not really exhibiting a lot of force. For another guy, it might be everything he's got. So like guys start talking about specific things like hold it 70-30 or whatever. I don't know if that's the case. For some bricklayer, he might just be holding it like he's holding his cell phone and his hands are just, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes good sense. That makes good sense.
But it
Dude,
doesn't mean, so what that would mean to me is that person with a weaker grip that can't hold it a certain way, do you make them hold it a certain way forever? Or do you strengthen the shit out of their grip and their wrist and forearms so that they're better, more resilient to do it in a more economical way, let's say? That's what people don't do. They say, okay, I'll do it this way then. But then they run away from the reason why they had to change, which is a weakness, which will catch up to you later on.
Sure. And of course, there's some caveats to that. My 72-year-old mother is not going to develop my grip strength, but she can have
But she can get better.
Right. That was what I was going to say. I can be better, and that whatever that might be, it might be 0.5%. It might be
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it could be something.
Do you know who Stuart McGill is? Dr. Stuart McGill?
I don't.
He's like the world's foremost back expert.
Okay.
He's originally from Canada, and he is an absolute genius with fixing people's backs. And I did a seminar, a workshop with Stan Efferding before in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Dr. Stuart McGill presented before us. And when I met him, he shook my hand. I've got monster hands, especially for my size. And when he shook my hand, he's about 6'2", and he didn't let go. He just kept holding it and squeezing it. And I looked at him after, 20 seconds, and I said, what are you doing right now? And he was analyzing me as far as grip. In recent history, it's come out about your grip strength and your correlation to
longevity.
Overall, your lifespan. And this was a whole bunch of years ago. He told me about this. And what he was doing, he was assessing my strength from my thumb to my pinky. And if it was pretty even, then the chance of you living long, he said, is a lot better. So I used to train my grip. Since I was a kid, and I used to work on these two fingers more because they were the weak links. And I think that had a big reason why I stayed healthier with less injuries.
That's interesting. We talk about pinky power in shooting, using the pinky as like an anchor point and developing strength through that finger. So what did you do to strengthen just those two fingers? Were you like hanging from a bar off of them?
Yeah, I did one arm grip holds.
Okay.
Stand sideways and hold it. I got up to 465 for 30 seconds.
Jeez.
Yeah, I could do shrugs without straps.
You were holding 465 pounds in one arm.
Yeah.
And the other arm was empty.
Yeah, I would just hold on to something with the other arm like this.
Grab onto a squat rack or something.
I did shrugs with just a regular deadlift grip, a mixed grip with no straps, 765 for 15 reps. Never had a grip problem. Yeah, grip problem is not something that yeah, not me.
I dig that. I've been doing just dead hang holds.
That's
Just
fine.
seeing how long I could hang. Somebody recently told me that they were trying to go for a minute, and I was like, I don't think I've ever tried that. So I just got on the bar and did it. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I
Yeah.
intended to try doing it more, but I haven't.
Well, what you do when you hold it, take out your index finger and just hold it with 3 to 4 fingers, and that's it. Because then there'll be more pressure on those.
Just kind of let the index finger float.
Yep.
I'm going to try it. How much did you hold in one hand?
465 for 30 seconds.
So you're what some men would be happy to do with 2 hands for a deadlift. You were just holding off the side of your body.
It's just what I did. I didn't think about the weight. Like I said, I just tried to get better. It took me where it took.
Did you have guys ever just like walk by you in the gym and go, what the hell?
Yeah, it was more like, what the fuck?
Did you ever see this YouTube channel of this dude that he's a professional power lifter, and he's fairly lightly built, and he puts like a janitor kind of
I think it's a Russian guy that does that.
Yeah. And he like has a mop bucket, and then it'll be some hulking dudes deadlifting hundreds of pounds, and he'll be like,
that big guy will miss it, and then he'll come up and kind of move the weight so he can brush.
He'll move it with one hand and mop underneath it while he's holding hundreds of pounds. Yeah, it kind of made me think of that.
It's a cool setup.
Yeah. You should go into some gyms and do that. We could film it to sell your.
Actually, there's a girl I know, Meg Squats, and she used to do some powerlifting, but she's really good with helping women now change. And they decked her out to make her look like an old woman, and went in the gym and started doing all kinds of lifts, and it was pretty funny.
That sounds hilarious. So you're in your 60s. I'm sure you could still walk into a gym and do some crazy impressive stuff, not even trying to touch your old records. Like what can you bench press now without causing injury?
I'm just coming back from some bad shoulders. I got quite a few 100 million stem cells put in me by a friend of mine, a Dr. Edward Coan. He's probably the foremost, expert in stem cells and rejuvenation medicine ever. And I went to him a little more than a year ago in Los Cabos, Mexico, one of the clinics he has there. And they've been slowly, it took a long time, but then all of a sudden it kicked in and they've been getting a lot better. So I don't really worry about going heavy. I really don't. So I don't even, my numbers aren't impressive enough to me, so I wouldn't even say them.
What's it like when you're going to the gym and you're deadlifting or something, what are you deadlifting? 50 pounds? I'm doing some child psychology.
You know what? I don't even go into the 5s now. I just do a lot more reps than I used to.
So you're still lifting 300-400 pounds though.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Thank you. So
yes.
So 400 pounds.
I can still play with those weights.
Play with. 60-year-old man playing with 400 pounds.
I never even look at my age as a factor of anything. I just
it is a factor though.
It's not as much of a factor as people think. It's like, for me, it's how many miles do I got on me already? Like I said, there's repercussions down the line.
I dig it. I wasn't saying because you're this age, you shouldn't be capable of it. But I mean, there's people that are 60 years old doing fucking chair yoga. Okay.
Yeah. They're selling themselves short.
Yeah. I don't want to be there.
They bought a program from somebody who doesn't know shit. It's actually designed for someone it's designed for someone more like Joe Biden
right.
than it is for a healthy person.
Sure. Well, I think that's, kind of bringing the conversation full circle. If we never know what we're capable of, it's pretty easy, if you take off sprinting, you're going to blow a hamstring. Well, I do actually sprint quite a bit. So it didn't dawn on me that I was going to blow my leg up. I mean, I'm not a runner or a sprinter, but every day I'm sprinting around doing something.
Then you're doing your own. You did your own study on yourself.
I've got some busted bits, but it's sad to me when people don't push their body. Like I'll be at the gym and we'll get some guys like big hulking, heavy lifting cops will come in and want to train jujitsu, and little 190-pound me will have my way with them, and they get they get sore about it, so then they don't want to come back. It's like, well, that's a clue, man, that your muscles are awesome and you're strong, except in this other area.
I would expect to be beaten and just say, okay, let's go slow, don't hurt me, and let me try to learn shit. That's all it is.
And that's the attitude, right? The other attitude is I'm big and strong and I'm going to impose my will on you, and I don't want to look.
Now you're in trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to look less than. And that might work for a while, except you hear about a lot of those dudes blowing shoulders, blowing tendons, tackling guys on the street, trying to be.
It only works for a while against weaker, untrained people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sooner or later, you're going to get someone who knows how to fight or whatever, or knows how to run, and they're going to just say, boom, and be gone. And you're going to try to chase them? No, it's not going to work.
Would you change anything the last 40, 50 years?
Very, very little, if anything. Because I learned so much that it got me to who I am now.
Did you have another job besides lifting? Did you have a profession or career outside of that?
No, I started off doing some electrical work at the beginning, but there's no way that was going to work out as long as I wanted to be the best I could possibly be. So I trained people that fit way more my style than anything else.
And you were in the gym, so you were probably doing stuff while you were there.
Yep.
That makes good sense. What's in the future for you besides the website and continuing to proliferate the drug trade?
I still like getting out and doing some workshops and stuff.
What does that look like? How does can somebody reach out to you and set something up?
Yeah, they can get a hold of me on Instagram. I mean, and we just go through what it'll cost to get me to where they want me to be. Mm-hmm. But it's usually 4 hours. Everyone squat, benches, and deadlifts throughout the time, and I'm running around like a drill instructor the whole time, correcting everyone, fixing everything, answering questions. Then when the thing finally is over with, we sit around and talk, because at that point, they've let their guard down and they have a better idea of what their strengths and weaknesses are and what they really want to learn.
Not trying to show off anymore.
Right.
Instead,
Right.
They're not going to show you shit.
No, they can't. Nothing I haven't seen.
I'm not the world's greatest shooter, but my friends are, and I will have guys in classes that try to show off, and I'll nip it in the bud. Like, fellas, I have trained with the best guys that walk in the world. Like, you're not going to impress me. I'm impressed that you're here, so let's just get rid of that, because you're pissing in the wind.
I've never been in a position where I've tried to impress anyone. If that would mean I would go off schedule of what I was supposed to do, and wasn't going to happen.
Did you get good grades in school?
I would say a B+.
Okay.
As long as I paid attention, I was able to absorb everything.
I didn't know if this driven nature of yours translated into other stuff. I've got a kid I grew up with.
It all depends. If you can get a certain teacher that teaches a certain way and speaks a certain way, that can open up everything for that student to get them to learn where they don't put up a barrier at all to get better, to learn, to absorb that knowledge. It just by being in any type of in jiu-jitsu or anything. You can have one professor or whatever that you just can't click with the guy, but another guy could come in and talk to you in a different tone, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the problem.
You said, wanted to circle back to it just to chat on it for a minute. JKD, that's Jeet Kune Do, for those of you that don't know. That was Bruce Lee's style. You still practice any of that? Who are you practicing that with?
There's a guy named Mike Van Beek on the south side. He's right in Indiana right now. And he basically grew up doing everything, every martial art you could think of. And he gravitated towards that. And he, more of a street kid. So you learn a different level of violence than regular traditional stuff. And he went out to California and learned from all the greats, and then learned everything from the back doors, from the back alleys. So there's a little bit difference there. Like, it's not as much traditional style, but it's more on how the fuck can I protect myself and get out of this situation as fast as possible.
I dig it. You still train with him at all?
I haven't in a little while. I might pick it up again soon, but I liked working with knives.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What got you into that? What kind of knives? Like Kali?
It morphed. All that stuff morphed into that with the Filipino martial arts.
So,
and
some
really
Sayak? Did you train with the Sayak guys, or what's?
No, it was still him.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got a knife on you right now?
It's actually, one of them is right next to me.
Always have a blade.
And of course, it's already opened.
I like it. Well, now you went up a notch in my book. You're not just a power lifter, you're a blade guy. I dig it. Brother, I really appreciate you taking the time. This was a really pleasant conversation. I'm going to have fun sharing this podcast. There's so many little nuggets of wisdom and truth about getting better at all kinds of things.
Yeah, getting better is always fun.
Yeah, I dig it.
If you set up the program right, you always get better.
Therein lies the truth, though. How do I set it up right? You don't know what you don't know.
Learn. What you do is you sit down for an hour and you start writing your ideas down on your training and your weaknesses and your strengths. You say, how can I formulate this into a plan? Then you go to the next empty sheet of paper and you start writing down notes again on how can I possibly formulate this? What's doable? What's not? What days? How many hours can I do this? And all this stuff. And then you whittle it down till you find your own way. The problem is even with the way I train people is I want them really to get to a point where they almost don't really need me anymore, where I'm just, a source of information for them. Because if I didn't teach them, then I didn't do my job, and I didn't do it the way I thought I could, or for the right reasons.
I like that.
You have to have some integrity.
Yeah, you got to keep coming back and paying me more. I'll give you one more.
It's not going to work.
Yeah, I know some guys that do stuff like that. People will say to me, what's next? And go train the stuff we talked about, man.
Yeah, if they keep having to come back to you, then the chance that they're doing shit wrong all the time is really high.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it's just a circle jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I dig it, man. How do people find you? People want to reach out?
Just on my Instagram account, Ed Coan or Eddie Coan, whatever that is.
You don't know your Instagram account? Well, we'll find it.
We'll find it and
we'll put it in the show notes.
Or Ed Coan, yeah.
Well, you're pretty prolific on the internet. If you guys put his name into the Google, you'll find him, and I'm sure you can backtrack over to Instagram. You got a Twitter account or anything like that?
There's a lot of cool Instagram videos or YouTube videos out there too.
Yeah, there is. I've watched a bunch of them. Bro, I really appreciate you. It means a lot.
You're welcome.
I'm actually going to shoot you a message offline. I'm going to send you a blade. A friend of mine owns Regiment Blades, a very cool company. Trains some of the top guys in the special operations community, and he's a knife fighting legend, and that's his jam. So now that I know that about you, I have to get you one of those. But you guys that have tuned in, I hope that you gathered some value from this. It's not just about the end result. It's what are you doing to get there? And guys like this are plethoras of knowledge on the topic. Check him out. Go follow him online. Be well. Don't be dickheads. Tell somebody you love.
Perfect.
Bye now.
Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com.